Start this out with saying again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a woman who got really, really sick and got a lot better unexpectedly, even when multiple doctors were trying to help me with a number of the issues above. So now that I know what was going on, I come on and share the information with you guys so that you hopefully aren't being gaslit and feeling hopeless about your own health, and that you can start to understand what's really going on and how easy it really is to fix what's happening to our health these days. So, hang out with me for a minute. Let's dive in and learn. Today, we're going to be talking about skin issues. Yesterday, I had a number of questions about it. So, we're going to talk about it today. But while we're jumping in, while everybody's jumping in, you guys want to let me know where you're coming in from, where in the world are you? And if you have any of the issues above, put them in the chat below. Maybe we can have time to address it. I am going to go over what insulin resistance is, what's causing it, how we can get better from it after I explain these skin issues linked to it. What you need to know while we're getting started is that 93% of us are metabolically inflexible, metabolically ill. That means we have some sort of insulin problem likely. So that means 93% of us are faced with this issue. So if you see yourself on the list in one or two or three or four or many more, it's likely that you're suffering from insulin resistance, and by addressing that one thing, a number of your health issues may just start to get better. So let's start talking. I'm up in Maryland, by the way, only for a few more 4 months. I just got notice last night for sure that those of you who don't know, I am attached at the hip to my grandson. So our saying is where he goes, I go, and my son was offered an amazing job in Cincinnati, so we're going to be moving to Kentucky. But right now I'm in Maryland. I grew up in Idaho, so it's been an amazing life. Where are you guys at? Let's get started. The questions yesterday about skin issues. Let me see if I can find my notes, because you guys, like I said, I'm just a normal person. Some of this stuff I have to remember as well. So the big one yesterday that was being asked is about eczema. Now, what I want everybody to understand is when we get to the part about what insulin resistance is, what I want you to understand now is that science is just starting to go, okay, there's links here. This person or this type of disorder has a more high prevalence of metabolic disorders or insulin resistance than people without it. So now that's prompting them to look at all of these links and what could be going on between insulin resistance and all of these disorders. So while they're finding links and while we know there's correlation, a lot of times we don't yet know the exact mechanism. So when it comes to eczema, I'm not going to be able to give you that exact mechanism. What I'm going to be able to say is that yes, insulin resistance is linked to eczema, and this is what I found. So that chronic inflammatory skin condition, characterized by red, itchy skin patches, research is suggesting that insulin resistance does play a part in the development or the exacerbation of. So if you already have eczema and you become insulin resistant, or that it can make those flares and that eczema much more prevalent and painful than somebody without insulin resistance. So those high blood sugar levels that create insulin resistance, which we'll go over in a minute, cause a lot of inflammation, and the inflammation is said to be what's causing the eczema. Get the inflammation under control, get the insulin resistance under control, and even if you have the underlying structure for eczema, you may just see that you have less breakouts of it, less struggles with it, and that life can feel a little different. Now, psoriasis is very similar, right? So psoriasis is an autoimmune condition. However, the link for me is that most autoimmune disorder doctors are starting to say that autoimmune diseases are all just caused by inflammation. So if inflammation is causing eczema, and psoriasis is autoimmune, and it has inflammation related to it, I would think that there's a pretty good link. Now, again, we don't have the mechanisms, but it seems to be that people with these disorders are 3 times more likely to have a metabolic disorder than people without, and that's pretty telling as well. So psoriasis and eczema, if you get the insulin under control, you may just get control of your flares. Now, with that, we do have a client who had really bad psoriatic flares. She started the system. Within a few months, they were calming down. I think by the time her 90-day trial was over, she wasn't having flares. And now she's not having flares regularly at all because she's addressing her insulin resistance with the same protocol I use. So going from having daily flares, painful flares of psoriasis to not having them is pretty amazing. And no medications involved, just 2 real food products and a simple protocol we'll talk about in a little bit. But then we start to get into things like acne. So who here has anybody that suffers with acne in their life, especially like that oily, greasy acne that's popping up all over the skin, that's causing, we think it's a teenage issue, but would you be surprised that it's actually an adult issue too? And what's really happening there is um sub our I forget the name for it now, but there is an oily substance that our sebaceous glands emit to help keep our skin moisturized. With insulin resistance, sebum, you're producing more of that, and so it's actually overwhelming the pores and clogging them up, causing that cystic acne. Thank you, sebum. Yes, I remembered it. Just before you typed it in, but thank you for the help. Um, so the insulin is causing this increase because remember, insulin resistance, um, well, I haven't told you yet. So we're going to talk about insulin resistance and some terms and whatnot in just a little bit. But insulin resistance isn't just resistance of skin cells or cells taking up insulin. It can cause a hyperactivity in some cells. So the insulin resistance term is maybe a little flawed, they're now starting to say. So, okay. So acne. Then we get into things like skin tags, hidradenitis suppurativa, and acanthosis nigricans. So all of these are very much linked to insulin resistance through inflammatory pathways, through cells overreacting. So the skin seems to really overreact to insulin, right? But skin tags are just these skin cells called keratinocytes that are overproducing. But because they're producing so much, it's not actually causing a tighter skin frame, it's causing a looser skin frame. So now you have pillars of skin that are sticking out around your neck, your eyelids, under your arms, and your groin called skin tags. The interesting thing is the other 2 conditions, which involve dark skin, and then the second one, dark skin and red pimply bumps, can you see it all linking together? Are very highly linked to insulin resistance as well. So acanthosis nigricans, those dark skin patches. What I found is that my melasma got better. I used to have dark skin patches along the side of my face that made me feel like I was a character from Star Trek. Plus, I had the dark rings around my neck. Plus, I can't pull my sleeves up, but I had dark elbows all the way down halfway past my elbows, and my knees were dark. And I remember saying, jokingly, because I have a really quirky sense of humor, I'm Native American, I shouldn't be ashy like this. Well, that ashiness is actually insulin resistance. It's an early warning sign that something is going on in your body that's not right. And if you take care of it, guess what? All of that ashiness starts to go away. So I know I probably missed some questions. I just saw one pop up. You guys, I get excited sometimes. So again, on this live, if you ask me a question and I don't answer, just ask it again. Maybe I missed it. Um, your problem is sleeping. 3 hours of sleep and you're on the shot for weight loss. Whew. Okay, so there's a couple of things going on there, right? The shot for weight loss, some of those shots can actually increase your heart rate. So not sure which one you're on, but there's a possibility of that. Now, And that increased, I say that because that increased fight or flight, that increased heart rate disrupts your sleep. With insulin resistance, which the drugs are not taking care of, they're just trying to take care of the numbers, right? They're not really taking care of the root cause or all of these underlying things. So, um, with insulin resistance, you I don't know if it's that you can't get your brain to shut off, if it's what, but there is a lot of sleep apnea and sleep disturbances with insulin resistance. One of the things my mind is reaching, like if you could see the cogs in my head going together right now, um, so one of them is that your brain is just not getting the energy it needs. It's not getting the cues for all of the good stuff the brain needs to function properly. And so it either you get tired really quickly at weird times of the day, or you're super awake at other times of the day. And there is a link to insulin resistance. So sleep apnea can be linked as well. The biggest contributor that I see to sleep apnea with insulin resistance is the thickening of the tongue bed, and that tongue then is just too thick for your airways when you fall asleep at night, especially when you're laying on your back. Then that tongue bed will fall in and close off the airway, and it's called a condition called fat tongue. And they will tell you they can cut a slit in your tongue and put chemical in there to thin out the tongue bed to help your sleep apnea, but why not just take care of the condition that caused that visceral fat to grow in the first place? So I can tell you this, Crystal, that when I started this protocol, which we're going to go over in just a little bit, and I didn't even know about insulin resistance. My doctors didn't talk to me about it. Nobody said a word. When I figured out that this was all insulin resistance and I started to realize my sleep was getting better, my blood pressure was going down, I wasn't having morning leg cramps, I wasn't having bleeding teeth and gums, my eyesight was getting better, my hair was growing in thicker, all of that stuff. That's when I started learning about insulin resistance. But my sleep is better now. Like I used to wake up several times a night to go to the bathroom. I thought it was because I was just hydrating so much. It was diabetes. But I don't have that issue now. I go to bed. I don't wake up until the appropriate time, which for me is 5:30 every morning, and I'm asleep all night. Where before I started addressing my insulin resistance, I was waking up 60 times an hour and I felt like I never slept. So I would encourage you to try the system for 90 days. Don't just do it for 30 days because you're not going to see the results you need in 30 days. Give it the 90 days, give it the good old go, and see what can happen. If you're starting to sleep better, then you can understand that maybe it's insulin resistance. I will give you guys some clues as to how you can calculate your insulin resistance. Plus, I want to give you some interesting information that I just learned from Dr. Bickman as well, because I had this question come up with some clients. Remind me about fats and insulin resistance in a little bit. Okay, so yeah, so April, you might be actually having some type of sleep apnea and not recognize it too. So let's dive in. We've gone over most of the skin issues, kind of like a high level, just overview of them, because in honesty, outside of like the acanthosis nigricans and maybe the sebaceous glands on the acne, the things like the psoriasis and eczema, they're currently looking into exactly how insulin resistance is causing that. The biggest factor we can think of is the inflammation and the overproduction of some types of cells in the body. But I want you to understand your skin is an early warning sign. If you're seeing skin tags, you're insulin resistant. If you're seeing those dark skin patches, you're insulin resistant. If you're having some of these other issues, it's very likely that you're insulin resistant. So just deal with it and you'll start to feel better. Now, insulin resistance. I want to tell you this piece so you understand how we're going to fix it. Okay. At least in my brain, you need to understand what it is, what caused it. So now we know how to fix it, right? If we have something that keeps breaking, but we don't understand why it's breaking, it's just going to keep breaking and we're going to get frustrated with fixing it all the time. But if we can understand why something breaks or isn't working, then we can figure out the proper fix for it. What I want to say before I start is that most doctors are not trained in insulin resistance. They will admit to it. I'm not bashing anyone. And it's newer science, so we're just all coming around. So insulin resistance goes like this. And I want to talk about this because they're starting to say insulin resistance is actually maybe the wrong term, and it should have just always been called hyperinsulinemia, meaning too much insulin in the bloodstream. So it goes like this. We have a food environment that's broken. Put a 1 in the chat if you guys agree that our food environment is just broken. It's just plain broken. We have so much boxed, packaged foods. Like my mama used to can foods. We had nice, shelves lined with glass jars full of fruits and vegetables that we canned at home, or frozen stuff. Mom used to freeze a lot of stuff, but we just didn't have a lot of boxed, bagged, packaged, labeled foods. Um, when they do all of this, they're changing the nutritional value of the food in most cases. What they're concerned with is giving you something that's tasty so you'll come back and buy more, and yet at the same time not quite filling you up so you'll come back and buy more. So now we're eating more food than we've ever eaten. And then you hear these influencers. There's one, because I keep watching her lives, like facepalm, facepalm. Yes, she's lost weight, but at what cost? Because she tells people don't intermittent fast and eat every 2 hours. And there's no science behind what she's saying. And that's the problem I have with that. So we're eating every 2 hours, and eating every 2 hours doesn't boost up your metabolism. Put a 2 in the comments if you've heard that eating every 2 hours actually boosts your metabolism so that you can lose weight, so that you can, do all of these other things. Because it's such a fallacy, right? Right. And you know what? The thing is, I bought into that too. That's partly how I became insulin resistant in the first place. So insulin resistant in my late 20s or early 30s, I had started to put on some weight. I mean, I'd always struggled with my weight a little bit. Let me think about that. But I really started to put on weight that was becoming difficult. And so I bought into this: eat every 2 hours, eat smaller meals, that eating the big meal was the bad thing for you. And guess what? My weight stabilized for a while, but then all of a sudden, doing the same thing, I'm gaining weight, I'm gaining weight, I'm gaining weight, I'm feeling more sluggish, I'm having more problems. It was the wrong thing to do. And I'm going to go over why in just a minute. But eating every 2 hours, every metabolic scientist who is actually worth their who's actually studying this stuff will tell you that eating every 2 hours is one of the most damaging things we can do to our metabolism when we're doing it on a consistent basis, right? So that's just not a good thing. No waste, not waste ever. Couldn't stop snacking, right? Didn't work for you. And so here's the thing too, with the eat every 2 hours, and then I'm going to get right back into the insulin resistance. It just triggered a memory for me. Like, I am pretty open on here. I'm going to keep saying it for those of you who are new. I have autism and I have ADHD. It means I have some impulse control problems. Part of the reason I love fasting, it gives me control, right? I have a goal. I'm set for that goal. So now I have control. If you just let me go, I'm mindlessly eating. I'm just like truthful. I'm mindlessly eating, and I'm having to be like, whoa, why are you even putting this in your face? But fasting gives me that control. So now, that was a personal note. When we talk about insulin resistance, so we know our food system is broken. We know that the food that we're getting isn't as nutritious, as healthy as it used to be, and that we're more and more reliant on food, takeout food or boxed food, because we're in a hurry up society, right? We don't have time to meal prep. We don't have time. Like my mom really only cooked a couple of big meals a week, and then we had leftovers, but it was whole foods, right? We grew our own just about everything. But we weren't sick back then. So, April, give me a second because we're going to talk about that. I have a 13-year-old grandson, a 12-year-old granddaughter, and my 12-year-old granddaughter started the system, and the 13-year-old started the system 2 years ago. So it would have been 10 and 11. I have another kid who's 13 who started at about the age of 9 on the same protocol that I'm going to talk to you about. And it reversed my granddaughter's diabetes. She was diabetic type 2 at 11 years old. I'm the one who caught it from all these skin signs that we're talking about. Um, but the other boy is type 1 diabetic. So I want you to understand this can work for kids and it can work for type 1 and type 2 diabetics. We're going to get there. I just want to finish this explanation. So foods that are imperfect and we're eating too quickly. So why does that matter? Well, our body converts our food into something called glucose, or people will call it blood sugar. It's really just a measure of energy in our system. But more than 1 teaspoon of that energy in our system can be devastating to the system. And one doctor said, think of it like glass shards in your system. Um, so it's just kind of like tearing things up. But that high level of sugar in your system cues your hypothalamus to tell your pituitary, two areas in the brain, to send a signal to the pancreas, an organ that produces a number of hormones, insulin being one. Now, the pancreas is producing insulin. And why insulin? Insulin is meant to carry that energy to the cells of the body. Not only carry it to the cells, but actually be that delivery guy that knocks on the door and says, "Hey, let me in. I got a package for you." That's insulin. So when blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up to carry those packages and deliver it. But I hope you can see that with the amount of food that we're eating and the amount of food that's converting into glucose, which almost everything we eat today converts into glucose much quicker than it ever did, now we have a problem. Now we have constantly high blood sugars, and eating every 2 hours is keeping your blood sugars high. Whether you're eating a small amount or whether you're eating a big amount, eating that small amount, I'm going to explain why that's keeping your blood sugars high in a second. But now insulin is high, and this constant raising of the insulin. So insulin should go high to take care of the blood sugars when we eat, and then it should drop back down. We should only have insulin in our system when it's absolutely necessary. But most of us have insulin in our system all the time now because we're eating constantly and we're eating every 2 hours like we're being told to. Who do you think, by the way, who do you think came up with that myth of eat every 2 hours? Do you think it was a metabolic scientist or do you think it was the food industry? Metabolic scientist one, food industry two. Who came up with the eat every 2 hours? Let me know. Um, so we have this happening now. Our insulin is high all the time, and this is why they say it should be actually just termed hyperinsulinemia. Two, absolutely. April, you're absolutely correct. So we have this high level of insulin all the time, hyperinsulinemia. Now is when things start to go bad in the body. Anytime we have too much of anything in the body's always looking for balance. And when we shift it out of balance, we have a problem. So now insulin is high, sugars are high. The body's not meant to deal with that amount of insulin all the time. So some of the cells are trying to take up too much, being the skin tags, the acanthosis nigricans. I've talked about blood vessel walls, and there's a number of other places that will take up too much insulin. So they're overproducing, right? There are some cells that are like, I can't take you anymore, and they're shutting down to insulin. So they're not getting the energy in. The brain does this. The brain needs glucose, but the insulin receptors on the brain start to get shut down, and now you can't get glucose to the brain. Now you have brain fog and anxiety and panic attacks and sleeplessness and all this stuff. Okay, so this is insulin resistance. It's not just underreactive cells. Some cells are very overreactive, so it really should probably be called hyperinsulinemia. But right now, the term that everyone knows is insulin resistance. So what do we do? Well, if we know that the food environment is part of the issue, and we know that eating too much is part of the issue, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do fiber first. And why fiber? Because fiber slows down the delivery or the breakdown of those carbohydrates. And a clue, most of us women that are over 50, there's another enzyme called amylase that breaks down sugar really fine, and it's in big amounts when we're kids and we want it to break down so we have that immediate energy. But as we get over 50, and why is it always women that get this more? I don't know. But especially in women, we have an excess of amylase built up in our system. So now when we eat, it's more likely to convert to sugar even more quickly. So fiber first. Fiber is going to slow down the delivery of the sugar into the system. And the particular fiber that I use can cut a blood sugar spike by 20%. Fiber is something that we all need in our diet to digest and to have a healthy gut. But most of us are only getting in half or less of the fiber that we need in a day. So that's step one. Fiber first before you eat, every time you eat. Step two is prioritize protein. So many of the tissues in our body need protein, and we're just not getting enough because we're so focused on eating all those carbohydrates that are keeping us empty and hungry. We're going to talk about that. Then you want to fill up with fats and don't fear fats. And I'm talking about fats like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, and the animal fats. Uh-oh, I said it. Stop buying the lean ground beef. Stop buying the lean turkey. Stop buying all the lean stuff. That's not what's giving you heart problems. It's the sugar. Okay. So I'm not advocating for overeating fat either, because overeating anything is not good, right? But we've got to get back to a balance. How many guys remember the food pyramid when it was turned, what I call turned upside down, and the bottom of the food pyramid was grains and then fruits and vegetables. And so all of the carbohydrate stuff was what you were supposed to make up your diet with. And at the very top are these things called proteins and whatnot that we're supposed, and fats that we're supposed to have. But it was like the least focused on nutrients in our diet. They've actually flipped that whole thing upside down. And now those proteins and fats are some of the biggest things you need to be getting in, because they understand how those building blocks are so important to the body. Now, proteins, even animal proteins, can turn into some carbohydrates in the body and give you energy. So you're going to have an insulin spike even when you eat protein. Okay. Now, the fourth step is to limit your carbs. And that just means, don't make them the focus of your meal. Make the proteins and the fats the focus of your meal and have the carbs as an aside. Like the last time I'm doing a 36 and 12 fast, the last day I ate, I had a croissant with a lot of a really pure ham that I like to buy on it, and some cheese and a little bit of olive oil mayonnaise. That was one of the meals I had with some vegetables. Like, I'm not missing the carbs. I'm just not focusing on carbs first. Like today there was a spaghetti bake that I had read about and it sounded yummy. And I'm like, but why do I even need to put the spaghetti noodles in it? So I'm basically doing a meat and cheese bake, but it'll get in the fats and the protein. So fiber first, prioritize protein, fill up with fats, limit your carbs. Then we're going to go to intermittent fasting, is part 5, and why we're going to talk about that. But before I dive into that, the sixth step, before I forget it, is move your body. Your muscles are some of the largest users of insulin in your body. So the more you can be active, just get up and take a walk, move around, dance in the kitchen, do whatever it takes to move, the more likely you are to start utilizing the insulin that's in your body. Yeah, I think they and I do think that they understood about nutrition, but when you look at even our textbooks, the biggest funders of the textbooks, especially for medical school, are the food industry and big pharma. So is it any wonder why we're in a system that we're in? Um, and I do think they understood. So what was that I was talking about yesterday? There was links to PCOS back in the 1980s with insulin resistance, but nobody really talked about it, right? Nobody said, hey, fix this food problem and the PCOS problem starts to go away. And amazing that it's happening with our skin too. So fiber, protein, fats, limit your carbs, intermittent fasting, and move your body. Now, um, intermittent fasting, why? And this is going to go back to the every 2 hours thing, and then I'm going to show you what I do, and then we're going to talk some more if you guys want. But I love when you talk to me, so thank you for those of you who are asking questions and saying things. And I'm missing out on my Facebook because I had that down. Yeah, the fat tongue issue, Cynthia, is real. And I know because I was diagnosed with it when I was told I was waking up 60 times an hour. Some of the stuff I know is because I know, like it's if my life has been a wild roller coaster ride, but I wouldn't change a minute of it. All right, so when you eat, Your body goes to work converting all that, right? From the mouth to the butt, your body's digesting. Enzymes are coming out, actions are happening in your body that are all aimed at breaking down this food, which is not a pleasure tool, but it's a nutrition tool, and getting that what's in that food broken down so that your body can use it. So here's two things. Although I do protein shakes, like today, I'm not doing a protein shake for breakfast because I realized I have these great big, huge, grass-fed sirloin beef patties in my fridge, and I can put a couple of over easy eggs and some cheese on that, with maybe some spinach and some avocado, and boom, there's my breakfast. Crazy, and it's gonna be so yummy I can't even imagine. But shakes. You're not chewing. You guys, we need to chew more. Not just for the insulin resistance, but because doctors are starting to see a laxity in our lower jaw, and it's because we have food that's so easy to digest, people aren't chewing. You know, one of the other reasons it's easy to digest, they've taken fiber out. Fiber makes it crunchy, chewy, hard. It's actually good for your jaw and your facial structure. You want to do something for your facial structure, chew your food. Okay. All right. So we eat food. Your body's going to into this whole mode of changing that food into energy for your body, breaking it down, getting out the micronutrients, getting out the macronutrients, feeding your body all the nutrition it can from that food. Part of that's the glucose that is the energy that the cells need. When you eat every 2 hours, you're continually spiking that glucose level. Now, when you eat, it takes about 2 hours for your glucose levels to spike, and it takes about 4 hours for them to start to come back down again. Okay. So if you're eating every 2 hours, are you ever allowing your food, your glucose level to come down? No, you're not. And why? I'm going to get to why this is important. So in our metabolism, there's a number of hormones, but we're going to talk about two of them. And one is insulin resistance, and glucagon is the other one. So it remind me about glucagon in a little bit because I learned something really interesting the other day about it. But so they're both hormones that deal with energy use in your body. Insulin is a saver though. So when you're eating, insulin is carrying that energy around, but it's also protecting that energy that you used so that it doesn't get used up too quickly. And now where it can't deliver it to cells, it starts storing it in your storage unit called your fat cells. But insulin, it can be high for about 8 hours after you eat. If you're an insulin resistant person, it can be 8 hours to 12 or even 14 hours before that insulin really actually starts to come down. So 8 to 12 or 14 hours before insulin comes down. Why is that important? So when we look at when insulin comes down now, this other hormone called glucagon can come out. So insulin is a saver, it's anabolic, it wants things to grow. Glucagon is a spender, it's catabolic, it wants to eat things up. But glucagon, part of its process is to take junk cells, inflammatory cells, toxic cells, and whatnot, and convert them, recycle them. But it's also creating glucose in the system through this utilization of these cells and pulling fat stores back out and cueing the liver to break down these little packages of glucose stored as glycogen, little glucose molecules all packed together, stored in the liver for breakdown for use later. Glucagon starts to spurn that. So in the beginning, when you're really insulin resistant, you might give me a call and say, hey, but my blood sugars are high. Yeah, because you're getting all the blood sugars that are stored or the sugars that are stored around your body out. Okay. Yeah. So I'll talk about reactive hypoglycemia. Does not force you to eat every 2 hours. But you do have to be more careful until you can get over that. Insulin resistance is a result of those eating every 2 hours. And the hypoglycemia, I'll tell you about that in a second. Let me get through this part. Remind me about hypoglycemia in a minute. So now, 8 hours before glucagon goes down, insulin comes down, about 10 hours before this amazing hormone glucagon actually gets to do its work. Because insulin's like a bully, it takes precedence in the body because it's holding on to the energy for you to live and thrive. So it doesn't let glucagon do its job until it's down. Remember, that's 8 to now 10 hours when glucagon comes out. Now, glucagon comes out, but it's not like boom, all this stuff happens. Your body has to have time to adjust. Okay, insulin's not out. We're running on glucagon now. Okay, we're not listening to insulin anymore. We got to hear what glucagon has to say. Oh, we got to get this message to all the body. So it takes a couple of hours. Now, human growth hormone is going up. Ketones are going up. They're little messengers that are saying, hey, we're burning fat for fuel. And you start to have a number of other actions in the body where the body's starting to cue itself to say, hey, we're not taking in sugar for fuel right now. We need to start converting. So when you're doing fasting, it's not about calorie restriction. It's about allowing the body to flex, to switch metabolically so that we're not running on sugar anymore. We can start running on fat sometimes too. The problem is that we're training our bodies to live on sugar, and so they don't quite know how to live on fat. So why I'm doing an extended fast is to help my body reset after over 40 years of dysfunction. Okay. So glucagon comes out at about hour 12 is when those HGH and ketones are starting to come out. Now the body's like, oh, okay, we've got to go out and find energy. So we're going to start to pull in these fat stores. We're going to start to empty toxins out of the liver. And now we still have energy. So you're not eating up muscle cells because your body is intelligent. If your body's so intelligent that it's going to hang on to energy when it needs it, it's not going to burn up the healthy stuff when it needs more energy. It's going to go scavenge and say, uh, hey, cell, you look like you could become cancer if you sit there too much longer. We're going to get rid of you. We're going to recycle you. We're going to use you for some energy so this body can keep going. And that goes through the body and starts doing all of this work when you're in a fasted state. Plus, your gut starts to reset, your brain starts to reset, the receptors in your brain start to become more receptive to sugar, and you actually get sharper when you're fasting than when you're fed. So, eating every 2 hours is absolutely the wrong thing to do. And again, it's not about calorie restriction. Please don't think that you have to go to OMAD and really restrict the calories back, because that can be damaging to the metabolism too. Okay, once in a while, but on a daily basis for most of us, no. All right, so that's the stuff. I hope that made sense, right? For everybody, why eating every 2 hours isn't good for you, and what's happening metabolically in your body. So when you try to fast, you feel weak and low energy because you're very insulin resistant, most likely. So now we're going to go back to hypoglycemia, and we'll deal with both of these things real quick. You guys, I had reactive hypoglycemia and didn't even realize it. The clues we had were that, yeah, my blood sugar dropped. I didn't wear a monitor, so we didn't monitor how far. But after I ate, I would get and put a 1 in if this feels like you. Hey, Melba, talk about bone broth. I will. So when you have this, when you eat, let's slow down. When you eat, right, and this food is converting into carbohydrates really quickly and is spiking your blood sugar up, and then your insulin is up high. But now for you with reactive hypoglycemia, likely what's happening is your insulin level has been so high for so long and never learned to turn off that it's grabbing the sugar that you're eating and delivering it super quick, because you've somehow trained your body that your insulin has to stay high because you're constantly snacking and you're eating every 2 hours and you're eating carbohydrate laden foods and all of that. So your blood sugars drop really quickly because insulin delivered it, but insulin is still high because it's expecting you to eat more, but it just knows that you're going to eat every half hour, every 2 hours. And so it's got to hurry up and get what's in the blood out because you're going to be putting more in. So most often that reactive hypoglycemia is a result of eating every 2 hours and a result of eating the wrong things every 2 hours. Not a doctor. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I would do. What I would do and what I did do was start focusing on those same things: fiber, protein, and fats. It's going to give me energy. It's going to stabilize my blood sugar and not have those high spikes. For you, maybe you're not ready to do a 36 and 12 fast because you have the hyporeactive, right? Maybe you need to start with like a 12-hour fast, stop all the snacking, and eat good protein and fats that are going to sustain your energy and help prevent that drop of glucose. Because again, the higher you spike it, the more you're telling your body, I got to get rid of this. They're going to do it again. And so now it's dropping it down. Now, with that said, your blood sugars, according to Dr. Bickman, who wrote the book, Why We Get Sick, can drop to about 60. In the US, it's 60. I'm not sure what that calculation would be in the UK or elsewhere in the world. But they can go down to about 60 in the absence of feeling like you're going to pass out, having a headache, any of those things. I have watched my blood sugars drop to 60 multiple times, and I'm fine. My body, as it's becoming more metabolically flexible, starts to reach in and pull out those stores of fat and junk cells, and my blood sugars naturally rise. Because remember, glucagon is rising your blood sugars as well, just through a very different action than insulin is reacting to the food you've ingested. So it takes some work for a hypoglycemic person, but it can be done. But one of the big clues is two clues for you. Carbohydrates, you if you're truly hypoglycemic and having really bad issues with it, I would say get rid of the processed sugars and the processed carbohydrates and focus on your natural carbohydrates that are going to stick with you a little bit longer, things that are wrapped in fiber. And that's why I do this system, because I can have those other carbohydrates time release my sugar and not have it spike and dip like that. Okay. So, and you feel tired and fatigued. That's an initial reaction that can happen with people when they first start fasting, because again, you've trained your metabolism to like eat, eat, eat. We're gonna bring energy in this way, but your body's actually not utilizing all the energy, and so you're being cued to eat more. So you eat more, eat more, eat more, and the insulin level is going up, and you're getting sicker, and you're afraid to fast because you think you're gonna feel tired and weak. My first day on this 36 and 12 fast, this is the second time I've done it, I was pretty hungry. The second and third days that I fasted, I wasn't so hungry. Yesterday, it was probably more an emotional, mental thing, but I was struggling with food. Now, did I feel sluggish, tired, um, any of that during my fasting day yesterday? Absolutely not. I'm still fasting. I won't eat my breakfast until after this live. And then I will go get nutrition in. But again, I'm going to focus on protein and fats and getting in my fiber first, so that that nutrition hangs out for a while, nourishes my body for a while, and instead of causing these wild swings of blood sugars that are causing you to go hypoglycemic and feel fatigued. You just joined what was the food problem for PCOS. So the food problem is insulin resistance, and we just went over PCOS yesterday, but I can go over it again a little bit. I come live every morning from 8:30 to 9:30, Monday through Friday, and I talk every day. You guys, my corner of the world is insulin resistance and the protocol that I use to help me get over mine, to hopefully help you get better too. Okay, so we answered that. I think I answered that. Insulin resistance was already there because of PCOS, and now you have reactive hypoglycemia. So understand that scientists are starting to say, and remember I said they understood this in the 80s, but they're just really coming out to say it now. Insulin resistance, and this is very strong, but this is coming from the mouth of Dr. Bickman. In his estimation, and remember, Dr. Bickman, for those of you who don't know, is like the top metabolic scientist in the world. He's devoted his whole life to understanding metabolism and insulin and how it's reacting in our body. According to Dr. Bickman, PCOS and erectile dysfunction should be renamed metabolic infertility. It's not that the PCOS came and the insulin resistance happened. There was insulin resistance going on there, and the PCOS trigger got turned on because of the insulin resistance. And then the hypoglycemia, reactive hypoglycemia, is just a result of, like I said, your body is so trained to run on sugar and so trained to run on sugar so often that it's anticipating your next move and dumping the sugar out of your system when you eat. Now your sugar is low and you're being cued to eat more because your sugar is low. Well, I'm gonna not lie, when my sugars dropped to around 60 the first time I watched it, I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of that danger zone level," and I was afraid to go to sleep, but, my glucose monitor showed that as soon as it hit about 60, my that glucagon was catching in, and it was starting to put sugars back into my system. My sugars actually went back up to about 120, and then there was just this rise and fall of my blood sugars throughout that fast, which was a 7 or 10-day fast. You don't have to have carbohydrates to function, okay? Um, but I'm gonna say reactive hypoglycemia, again, it can be dangerous, so be careful. But some food modification is in order. Now, what I did to get over all of my stuff, and I'm gonna go over these products a little more in depth today than I normally do. But look, what I do, you see me drinking my tea this morning, is every morning I have this tea hot. The tea gives me It helps shut down my hunger cues in my brain and in my gut. There's a whole video from Dr. Huberman in my tab called The Tea, where he explains those actions of how this is happening, mimicking a GLP-1 agonist. So mimicking those drugs that somebody said they were injecting earlier, but just by supporting the body to do what it's meant to do, by giving the body the nutrients it needs, not chemicals as in medication. So the tea in the morning shuts down my hunger, helps me have energy, gives me mental clarity, has antioxidant, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory properties in it, actually helps with healthy heart rate. That's how I start my day every day. Does not break my fast. In fact, can help the fast. And there's not been a study done on this particular tea for autophagy, but these types of tea have been known to stimulate more autophagy, that cellular turnover when you're in a fasted state. So that's the tea in the morning, and it's like I have it a couple of times a day. So in this mug, it's cold. When I'm done drinking this hot one, as I go about the rest of my day, I will have one cold because it's nutritious. It has a number of vitamins and minerals in it, besides all those other things I mentioned, and adaptogens. And adaptogens really help us deal with stress. So there, all of this is naturally occurring in the tea. We don't add to it. It just is, the those components that I'm talking about are naturally occurring. Now, when I do eat, I will have this fiber, but it's more than fiber. It's a pre-meal drink. It has fiber, phytonutrients, and vitamins and minerals in it. This gives me 5 grams of 7 different types of soluble and insoluble fibers. So now, regardless of where I'm at, regardless of what I'm eating, I'm feeding the probiotics in my gut, helping my gut get healthy. But there's studies on that fiber that shows that it reduces a blood sugar spike by 20%. It's the only fiber on the market that has that study, and it's the only one that can have those results that anybody's found. Everybody else is using anecdotal studies to attach to their stuff. This actually had a study done on it, and because of that, it's allowed to be in the prescriber's digital reference. People can actually take a prescription and the receipt from the purchase and take it in and turn it into their HSA, pay for it with their HSA, or some people have had their insurance cover it because it's medically sound, but it's real food products instead of medications. Um, and you just get it in the link in my bio. Melba's asking about bone broth. So not sure what you want about bone broth. Bone broth is should be giving us a number of nutrients when we're fasting, but not anything that's going to spike your insulin. Plus, I believe that bone broth, and I need to double check this because I'm just starting like my fasting journey. So I'm not like Mindy Pels and who knows all the stuff. But I think that bone broth is one of the things that can actually stimulate more autophagy by giving you dense nutrients to the body while you're in a fasted state, but not giving you carbohydrates that are going to break that fast. So you can make your own bone broth by boiling down, bones from just different meats that you've used. You can add things into it for flavor. I just tend to find an organic bone broth in a carton, and utilize that. But it does not break your fast. As long as it's bone broth, it does not break your fast, but it gives you a ton of nutrients. You can drink the bone broth on days when you're fasting or not fasting. So yesterday was a fasting day for me. I Does anybody want to know what I drank, what I did on my fasting day yesterday? So I'm now at again at 38 and a half, 39 hours of fasting. So I'm having my tea this morning. Protein breaks fasts also, right? So I have, what are good carbs? We'll talk about that. Great questions, you guys. Thank you, Beach Gal. It means so much to me when you tell me stuff like that. She said, "Thank you for the detailed explanation and suggestions." I enjoy doing this every day too. Psoriasis, please. Okay, so there's a lot of questions. Your blood sugar dropped to 54. So again, you guys, unless you're having problems with fatigue, headaches, all of that stuff, 60 is probably about the bottom of where I would feel comfortable, but your body can really deal with that well. So again, the protocol is in my link. You guys, what I want to say before I go back into all these questions is this. I was thinking about it this morning, and I don't do as much of a good job about telling you all about the products as other people, but the truth is I'm here because of the products, because they reversed my insulin resistance, my diabetes, and all of the stuff up here. And it's simple and it's easy, and you can do it with whatever diet lifestyle you have. It's portable, it's sustainable, and it just is 90 days to see what can happen for you. So when we talk about psoriasis, if we really want to start addressing these things, we've got to address insulin resistance. And if we understand that what's happening is gaps in our nutritional system and an imperfect nutritional system, and that all that this protocol is doing is putting back, filling some of those gaps so that our body can actually do the job it's meant to. It's amazing. So psoriasis, they don't have specific data on exactly the mechanism or that I could find that causes psoriasis with insulin resistance. But what they found is that psoriatic people are 3 times more likely to have a metabolic disorder than people without psoriasis. In my own world, I've seen people with psoriasis, one in particular that I think of because we all have that one story, right? But she had really bad flares of psoriasis. They were painful, they were embarrassing. She started the system, and she didn't start the system for her psoriasis, but her psoriasis cleared up and she stopped having flares of psoriasis after utilizing the system and getting the whole insulin thing um, under control. And my thyroid does fine fasting. I'm not sure. I did do some videos a while back. Maybe I'll redo them on this whole myth about fasting and thyroid. There were some parameters in those studies um, that kind of skewed the studies and made them unrealistic for what's happening in the thyroid. Your thyroid will actually, from my understanding of the mechanisms, I'm going to say this, from my understanding of the mechanisms, now is my brain putting stuff together to give you an explanation that makes sense to me as well. But when you're fasting, your body's even more cognizant of energy regulation than when it's in an energy fed state. And thyroid is the major not metabolic but and yes, metabolic energy regulation hormone. So insulin is delivering energy, glucagon is creating energy, estrogen is creating some energy, but thyroid dictates how the energy gets used. So in a fasted state, what I feel like is with these fasts and the protocol, not what I feel like, my thyroid was never in normal range before. Now all my thyroid levels are in normal range. But there was one that was a little bit on the lower range. But look, I've had thyroid issues for 40 years. Do I expect that all to have cleared up in 2 to 2.5 years? No. So we're working on that. But my thyroid does fine with fasting. Actually, my thyroid function is better, what I'm getting at, now that I've been doing fasting in the protocol than it was before. Because the thyroid hormone is going out, dictating where the energy goes. But more than that, the thyroid has receptors. The thyroid hormone has receptors in your cells, every cell, just like the insulin receptors do. What I don't talk about a lot is that inflammation that's being caused. It can cause insulin resistance, but insulin resistance can cause it. If you talk about the cells and like so this hand is your cell and this is your receptors for all your hormones, leptin, ghrelin, insulin, thyroid, all of that are poking out here. That's a normal cell, right? And so the receptors are out here and it's like, hey, insulin, I'm right here, land here, or hey, thyroid, here I am. I'm gonna let you in. But when we have inflammation body wide, these cells start to expand and inflame, and now the receptors are not so visible and they're just not getting caught. So now it's not just that it's not just about the hormone that your thyroid produces, it's how your body can utilize the hormone, and fasting is helping with that. I hope that explains it. Um, Oh, I didn't do bodybuilding, I did powerlifting. Because look, I've always been heavy, and so here's the thing, the caveat is, even when I was powerlifting and I was doing keto and I was, like, in the gym 6 days a week, 3 hours a day doing some busty, sweaty workouts, I was still heavy. And I can get pictures of my bodybuilding or my not my bodybuilding, my powerlifting days. So I still have mama tummy. I still have, but I was also the lightest heavyweight on the platform on any given day, because I was stuck in this place where my metabolism isn't functioning and my thyroid isn't functioning, and I'm getting older. And so even though I'm busting out these workouts, watching all my macros, counting all my calories, I still wasn't losing weight. So I'll get some pictures of that. Okay, JGAT. But yeah, you can it's been a while since I've power lifted, but I did compete at the Arnold one year, unfortunately. And you have to be invited. So you have to be at a certain level to compete there, which was amazing for me. But it was like the precursor to my first worlds. So all the mistakes I made at the Arnold, I took forward and did not make those mistakes at worlds, and actually had a perfect competition where I had you get two red lights, or you get three lights. Two of them have to be white for the lift to pass. So you have three judges. So three white lights for every lift is a perfect lift. And I had perfect lifts, and I had a perfect competition, and I won gold in bench, squat, and deadlift, and took home the overall gold. So yeah, I'm not an indisciplined person. So why am I suffering with all of this stuff, right? Because your body needs nutrition in the right way. And even though I thought I was giving my body nutrition, I didn't understand this thing called insulin resistance, and how even protein, yes, produces carbohydrates or glucose in your system, more likely glucose. Okay. Um, okay. I'm a very visual person. I hope you guys understand that now. Like, you guys, if somebody tells me something, it's like, wah, 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 wah. Give me a picture. You can tell me, but give me a picture. So, yeah. Do I take meds while fasting? I am not on any medications now, so I'm not taking any. But do you want a trick? Do you guys want a couple of little tricks that you can do medications while you're fasting if you need food for those medications? Put a put a 3 in this time if you want to know a trick or two for fasting and taking medications. Um, I started taking I started taking a bioidentical thyroid, but I'm not taking it. I took it for a very short period of time, and I started that bioidentical thyroid after we found out that one of my thyroid levels was within range, but maybe not optimal. But I'm a pain in the ass, Stacy. I'm a pain in the ass. I don't like taking medications, and I really want to see what my body can do. Not Armor, it was a compounded for me thyroid, um, similar to Armor, but not Armor. Uh, okay, so trick you can do when you're fasting to keep the autophagy going, but be able to have something in your gut for your medications. You can add MCT oils or coconut oil into your coffee or your drink when you take it, which is going to give something to your gut. But probably the best thing you could do, and I love, I'm not going to say the name, but you guys know the little cups that have like guacamole in them, the single serve cups with guacamole. I buy those with just avocado, single serve cups of avocado. Because let's be real, I'm not lazy, so I don't want to use that term, but like I don't want my energy expended where it doesn't need to be because I have a lot going on in the day. So I don't want to stand and cut avocados and mash them and hope they don't go bad before I use them. So I use the little cups of avocado. A cup of the avocado is a good healthy fat that should help your autophagy, not break your fast and allow you to take your medications. Just a little cup though, not a lot. All right. Um, okay. Stacy, I don't know why it's blocking your comments, but let's fix that. Okay. All right, guys. It's about that time. I do want to talk about this. What I did, somebody put in a 3 and I'd forgotten what I asked the 3 for. So, what I did yesterday on my fast, I woke up, I had my tea. I had another tea throughout the day. This one takes me a couple of hours to drink. I have the little bottled waters, which I feel really wasteful, and I'm trying to move to gallon water, so I'm not having as much waste go out. But I drank probably 8 bottles of water. At one point, I was struggling with hunger, so I had some bone broth, a nice hot cup of bone broth. And at one point, I knew that I needed electrolytes in, especially on fasting days. So I had another warm cup of liquid with the LMNT. And it was, what did I have yesterday? Because I got the chocolate blend, so they're great hot. But it's I think I had like chocolate chai yesterday, element, but again, no sweeteners, not breaking my fast. So I had 2 tea, bone broth, the element, and then I did, because I was really struggling with the hunger, I drank a seltzer. I had 2 seltzer waters, so no calorie, no anything, just carbonation in the water, and I put some ketones in that. The ketones I've had for a while. I don't like them because they're too sweet. They're from another company. And I don't like to use ketones a lot. I bought them when I started fasting to try and help my ketone levels get up, but I don't like exogenous stuff in particular. Anyway, I did have a lime, I can't remember what they called it, but anyway, a lime ketone in some seltzer water. So that gave me the bubbly and the like, I feel a little bit full and there's something on my palate, but nothing that would break my fast. So that was yesterday. Today, I have my grandson coming over tonight. So who knows what we're going to have for dinner. I probably want to do that like spaghetti bake without the spaghetti in it. It's kind of almost like a lasagna, but anyway, I have some grass-fed ground beef that I have thought out. I normally am a chicken eater, but today looks like a beef day. So this morning is going to be this big sirloin patty with a couple of over easy eggs, some spinach, avocado, and if I've got tomato in there, I'll put some tomato on it. But that will be my breakfast. That will be how I break my fast. A lot of protein, probably close to the 50 grams or more of protein that I want to get in. My second meal, I'm not sure what that's going to be. If I have not eaten enough and don't feel like I got in enough protein, I will add a protein shake, one of my protein and fat shakes that I do, just to get the nutrient level up. Nothing to do with hunger, everything to do with nutrients. So today, on my eating day, on my 12-hour eating, I'm going to be focused on getting in 150 to 170 grams of protein in today. I'm going to aim to get 30 to 40 grams of fiber in. So I'm having this fiber at 3 points during the day today. I already had some fiber this morning because I just came off of the fast. And that will be my day. So I'll have my tea like usual because the tea is great whether I'm fasting or not. And then I'll have the fiber in. So today's going to be protein, fiber, and fats is the focus. I will have some carbohydrates because I love them. And I don't have to worry about it when I'm doing this fast. I try to manage them so that this fast works best for me over these 30 days. But I have a real life. So I may have a croissant again with my grandson tonight because that's his favorite thing in the world. All right. Yesterday you had the tortilla, and anytime you have bread, for some reason I always fall asleep. Why? Um, you could have some gluten intolerance, but bread and tortillas are probably highest on the glycemic scale, so they're shoving your blood sugars higher than anything else. So after you eat, you may be having some of that reactive hypoglycemia where your blood sugar drops and you're tired. How there's 5 grams of fiber in each one of those packs. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when we're doing it twice a day, that's adding 10 grams in. Today, this will be adding 15 grams in. But more important than the grams of fiber, it's the type of fiber. So yeah, I could open up a canister, that green or orange canister, and get 5 grams of fiber out of it. But this fiber has 7 different types of fiber in it, soluble and insoluble fibers. And it's been a while since I talked about soluble and insoluble fibers. Insoluble fibers don't take up water, and they pretty much remain the same throughout the digestive tract, but they act like a broom in the digestive tract. However, they still are feeding your probiotics a little bit. Okay, so they make a mesh in your digestive tract. That's the insoluble fibers. Think of them like a broom, cleaning stuff out. Soluble fibers soak up water and they start to expand in your gut before you even eat. So this pack, I didn't go over this very well, did I? This pack gives me those soluble and insoluble fibers. So now I have something in my gut that's extremely expanding in my gut. So I feel full before I eat, less likely to overeat. That gel matrix then is able to sit inside that basket weave matrix. And now we have a substance that actually has some substance to it that's taking the food you're eating and coating it, encapsulating it, slowing down the delivery of it into the system, not depriving you of anything, just slowing down the delivery so you don't have this punch to the bloodstream of sugars, but you have this time released delivery. That's the goal of this. And it takes those 7 different soluble and insoluble vitamins or fibers to do that. So it's for me, it's more than the grams of fiber in this particular supplement. It's the types of fiber and the actions that it's having. That fiber, again, has had scientific studies that say it reduces a blood sugar spike with white bread by 20%, one of the highest glycemic foods out there, 20% reduction of blood sugar. Is there a way to have those? And I missed what I was talking about with that, or should you just avoid? Tortillas. Yeah, you can have tortillas. You guys look at, I have tortillas, I have pizza, I have all of that stuff. Not all of the time, but I have it when I want it. But again, the protocol that I talk about, that's why this is such gold for me, because it's putting back what the food industry stripped out so that now my body can recognize those starchy carbohydrates and understand that it doesn't need to convert to sugar right away or get laden in my liver, especially if it's fruits. This helps slow all that down so it's more normalized, like our bodies were meant to run. So do I have to forego tortillas? No. I mean, if you can, if you want, but if you're not doing something like this to help you with that blood sugar spike, then you're going to have to avoid tortillas. If you want to have a more normal life where you're just paying attention to some cues and living life, the system is what changed my life, reversed my insulin resistance, helped me start sleeping better, got my blood pressure down, all of that. For those of you guys who don't know yet, I had a walker, a cane, and disability plates 3 years ago. And although I didn't use the walker because I was so mad, I couldn't believe that I was once a world champion just a few years before, and that my health had failed so bad that I was having a walker. So I would grab walls, I would grab anything. I would never go anywhere where there wasn't a cart for me to push. Um, but it's a whole different life now. I don't have to have a cart. I can carry a basket. I don't have to have disability plates. I don't have to worry about stairs. I don't have any of that worry. And all I did was that a tea in the morning and a pre meal drink before anything. Give it 90 days and see what it can change in your life. That's what I want to say. Okay, guys, I'm going to drop the link over in Facebook, YouTube for where to get the system if you want to try it. And here's the thing. Ooh, my tummy is rumbling. Um, I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, the reason I'm here every day talking about this is yes, I want to educate people, and I don't do enough about talking about the product because the product saved my life. There's a reason I spend $5 a day every day on this, and it's that. It's that it changed my life and got me off of all of my prescribed medications. Yes, I did try some thyroid last winter, but I'm gonna let my body heal itself. But the protocol is saving lives. It's helping people. I have a man who's lost over 160 pounds, a woman who's lost over 130 pounds, people who've overcome their symptoms of lupus. I have a guy who has muscular dystrophy and is having some issues because there's muscle wasting that goes along with this as well. Oh, two things before I get off. I forgot. Fats. Somebody in my circle was reaching out to me and upset because their cholesterol levels went high. So now I want to talk about something because I've learned a few things, and one of them this morning. But I've heard cardiologists say they don't give a crap about the total cholesterol. What they're looking at are those individual numbers like your triglycerides, your HDL. There's a calculation, it's in the tab up above on how to tell triglycerides divided by HDL. Look, if your cholesterol level is high, this is from Dr. Bickman and Dr. Ken Berry. If your cholesterol level is high and you do that ratio, triglycerides divided by HDL, and that ratio is below 1.5, stop worrying about the cholesterol levels. You're fine, or most likely fine. Cholesterol levels can go high depending on what's going on. And if your HDL is coming up finally, your cholesterol, overall cholesterol panel, because cholesterol, that big number is just all of them linked together. And the LDL, they're saying you don't need to pay attention to the LDL if the HDL to triglyceride ratio is in order. So understand that with fats, the cholesterol panel being high overall isn't as important as looking at the individual numbers. And that's come from a number of health practitioners that I've learned. And the other thing was this morning, since I got triggered about the muscle wasting and other issues, especially with medications for weight loss, your bones, and we haven't looked at the bones and insulin resistance a lot, and yet your bones need energy for them to grow as well. And insulin plays a big role in your bone strength. So when we get into the state of hyperinsulinemia or or insulin resistance, the same thing can be happening in your bones as is happening in your muscles in a different action, but where your bones just aren't getting what they need to be strong and healthy. So brittle bones, all of that can happen when you're insulin resistant as well. We really want those insulin levels optimized to be what we need when we need them. All right, so I'll be back Monday. I'm not sure if I'm going to come live on Sunday. I might come live and just talk more about the product and the components of it so you guys can understand why it's actually addressing all of this for so many people. But is there something you guys wanted me to talk about on Monday? Is there some burning question that somebody has that we need to go over to explain how insulin resistance is linked to it so you can maybe better understand what's going on with you? I did see some notes. So if you guys don't give me something, I have some notes on a few things that I think we'll talk about. And aging may be one of them. So that would involve eyes, ears, hair, bones, all of that. But if you guys don't tell me something, I will pick something. And other than that, we'll see you Monday at 8:30 in the morning, and have a great weekend. You guys, as always, on Friday, I'm going to encourage you to put down the phones, put down the electronics, have some real family time. My grandson, who's coming over tonight, knows I actually have an alarm on my phone that goes off and says Kenny time. I don't pick up my phone for anybody but family during that time. He knows that that's his committed time. And how many people in your life feel that they're that important to you that you can focus on them for a few hours a day? I think we need to get back to more of that. The world is, I mean, we have to pay attention more to the people that matter in our lives and let them know they matter. So that's that. I'll see you guys 8:30 Monday. Have a great weekend.